What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today's topic, we're going to talk about Ethan from H3H3, obviously as you can see from the title, but unlike Ian, who I've talked about in one of my previous videos, Ethan's just a little bit harder to defend morally. And don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of H3H3 and have purchased many articles of clothing from Teddy Fresh, but when people criticize Ethan, it's sometimes valid. And my goal in this video is not to rip on Ethan, instead is to explore the drama surrounding him and question the validity of those criticisms. Ethan is in a new controversy every other week it seems, and he can't help but continuously put his foot in his mouth. His biggest enemy is talking in a non-edited format, which conveniently is what he's turned his channel into. And it's not news to anyone that H3 was one of those edgelords back in 2016, making fun of the SJW types, embracing meme culture, and ripping on corny trending topics. Whenever a video is released from the H3 channel during this era, it will be met with an overwhelming amount of support. That was until 2017, where he came out with this podcast, and people started to see a new side of Ethan that they may not have anticipated. One of the first major polarizing takes was on the PewDiePie bridge situation. I was going to make my own string of clips showing the hypocrisy, but somebody else did it perfectly, so enjoy the clip.
But, god damn, he really kind of just was really comfortable using that word.
Bruh.
It's just a wonderful string of words that really gets you going.
That really just kind of,
Bruh.
Yeah.
like you're reaching for all these words, right? And you're like, oh, let me just like a little and bum for you. I mean, I know this is a point a lot of people say, but it certainly seems like that's not the first time he's used that word in that context. And look, if you joke around with your friends privately, we say offensive things privately when we're joking with our friends because we all find it funny for one reason or other. But goddamn, dog, you're freaking live streaming.
I love that I can just say
Bruh.
though.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel
a
like
little.
you're using it a little liberally.
I love saying
Bruh.
it's so wonderful. So
now
when
you're gonna get shit for it.
Damn.
Not only had he been a huge hypocrite in this situation, but Felix was Ethan's friend, which made it just a little bit more distasteful to fans. And just so we're clear, I'm not doing this to point Ethan out as a racist, this is just to show that his hypocrisy is indefensible here.
A lot of people were upset for an episode we had where we criticized PewDiePie for his usage of the N-word. There was a lot of people upset about that. And I have addressed it once before. I was drunk. I was 4 hours into a stream. I was nearing blackout drunk. Not probably the best state of mind to address something like that in. Fully acknowledge that. So I definitely tip my beanie in shame for that. And so let me just talk about it sober. And after having reflected on it for a couple of days here too. So, listen, what I really think about it is that most of the people who were upset about it probably didn't watch the whole episode. Because the harshest criticism I landed against PewDiePie was that I was disappointed.
And the clip that he's referencing is pretty rough, and you can clearly tell he's intoxicated. The whole situation is just overall not a good look. Even without the drunken clip though, it is easy to see why the public's perception on his take was hypocritical. Ultimately, it's just hard to take the moral high ground when you say the things that Ethan has, and people started to have that perception of him as an egotistical hypocrite who chose content over most all else. Gokanaro blew up over this exact sentiment. He put together an hour-and-a-half video highly criticizing Ethan, going over his early controversies. Many of his points made in the video gained a lot of traction in the public space. Some points obviously more convincing than others, but overall he clearly put a lot of effort into this video. And it wasn't just an hour and a half of rambling, he brought up multiple things he felt deserved criticism. And the video was loved by many, and people speculated that Ethan was dodging because he didn't respond right away. It did get taken down, and obviously people started pointing their fingers at Ethan, but he did respond in an episode of his podcast addressing many of these accusations. Let's go ahead and take a look at how Ethan responded.
So, we never responded to this video. People wonder why we never responded to it. Truthfully, the reason is that, or at least directly, is that, I mean, at the time it came out, especially, and well, even today, there are a lot of videos criticizing me on YouTube, and I don't at a certain point, you really just can't even fathom responding to everything. You kind of just have to put on your blinders to an extent so that you can keep living your life and not just crumble. Obviously, there's a lot to criticize here, so I'm not saying that they shouldn't be made. But then what happened ultimately was a few months ago, the video was removed by YouTube for they updated their policy to include a clause that says creator on creator simulated violence. And at the end of in his thumbnail, he had him with a gun to the back of my head. And at the end of his video, he has a fairly, I would say, graphic assassination scene. His video ends with him assassinating me and burying me and then spitting on my body. So it's definitely like a very unsettling, creepy assassination scene. And obviously that, to me, people speculate why it was removed. To me, when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is obviously why it was removed.
Now, continuing from this clip, he keeps talking about Keemstar, who questions his relationship with Susan Wojcicki, which is not what I'm trying to talk about here in this video. So let's skip to where he responds to the N-word usage.
And that
Serious,
instance.
there's a big difference, guys. Context matters. As a Jewish person, I'm not offended.
Flash forward.
Well,
PewDiePie's in hot water, man. He said the N-word.
Yeah, he dropped the N-bomb, and
but the situations are completely different. Well, I don't understand why this is proof of anything.
he dropped it pretty hard. It was more of just like a Hiroshima. I mean, it's pretty much worst case scenario. You know, when they drop nuclear bombs and the people out on the street have like shadows left over and printed on the sidewalk. It's like that.
Get off your high horse, you pompous
Bruh.
prick! Oh my god!
I don't think Felix is a racist person, but god damn, he really kind of just was really comfortable using that word.
Yeah, so, okay, on this point, I'll totally own that this was a really bad take and a huge mistake. You know, in my mind, I was rationalizing. Obviously, I knew that I had said the N-word when iDubbbz was on the show. The context of that, of course, was that we were having a... iDubbbz famously would say the N or F-er. And I was like, how do you get away with saying that, you know? And then I started saying it, and then it turned into what I thought was a joke, where I was saying it. But in my mind, I was like, well, we're having a conversation about this word, and I wasn't using it as a pejorative insult, right? That being said, obviously that's a nuanced point, and there's plenty of people who think, well, it doesn't matter how you use it, you shouldn't use it anyway. And
honestly, even ourselves have changed since. I don't think today you would say it.
No, I cringe so hard when I see that clip of me saying that and thinking that it's okay. No, I wouldn't say that now, and I find it horribly embarrassing, and I was definitely hypocritical in this moment. There's no question about it. Like, I've totally owned that. You know,
like straight up.
I'm gonna skip this
And the way
part
he used it
because
really
it's all about the N-word,
You're
and this video is
disingenuous,
super long.
opportunist.
As many had felt at the time, he admitted to being too cocky and extremely hypocritical. His sentiment in this clip says it all. He felt incredibly embarrassed not only about saying the N-word, but also criticizing someone for the exact same thing. And I should mention that in this response video, he brings on all the people who were brought up in the Gokinaru video to talk a little bit more about the situation, to apologize, or just to talk for a little bit.
Like, that podcast was definitely a mistake, and I should have just kept my mouth shut. And clearly, I wasn't trying.
I don't know if that was necessarily the case. Like, I don't think just like even if you're friends, you can still criticize. I know what I did was wrong.
The whole podcast was definitely a mistake, and I do apologize for dogpiling on you.
I mean, it's all good, man.
Now, taking a look at this clip, it's clear to see that there's no bad blood between the two, and any beef that the public speculated that they had was clearly not there. And funny enough, Felix said this.
If anything, I was so overwhelmed at the time, and I remember seeing it, and people were just mad right away, and I'm like, low-key just like, okay, I'm glad some attention is away from me at this point.
People are, yeah, there you go. See, that's some real friend shit.
Now, to keep this thing moving, the next topic that Gokunaru gets into is the old Johnny Boy controversy, and Ethan does not spend much time on this because him and John are good friends, and obviously they dispelled most of those rumors on their call together.
No, all right, I'll put out. I mean, you can decide whether you want to use this. I know for a fact that it wasn't malicious, and I'll tell you why. Because Ethan and Gila graciously let me stay at their house that same night. It's not like he just cut me loose into the city. And then the next morning, he was like checking his Reddit, and he was wondering if he did the right thing. This was not a situation of malintent. I can say that for a fact.
Ethan doesn't talk much about this situation, so neither will I.
You might not notice it directly, but anytime Ethan feels he's superior to a guest, he makes it blatantly obvious. One of the worst occasions of this is the episode with Jimmy Lee. Now, I'm going to try and make this brief, but if you do watch this podcast episode, it is insane the amount of disrespect that Ethan displays.
Now, in my opinion, this is another nothing burger coming from Gokunaru, but I can see why people would feel this way not knowing the context. And that context being Jimmy Lee.
By the way, this is one of the greatest moments ever. So we met Jimmy Lee when we were living in New York, and we just made kind of like a vlog together, getting to know him because he's such a character. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Jimmy Lee is a character unlike anybody else in the world. Here we are eating lunch, and just watch him start. He's married, by the way, and watch him start hitting on this waitress.
I know the guy, and I'm putting my head in my hand. Who can embarrass a waiter that much other than Dad?
Then nobody would know the difference. They're all Chinese. I'm married, but my wife's I like you. Okay. And I want to make passionate.
Look at his hand.
But tonight I want to be on the bottom. Okay. And I want you to be up on top. So Ethan's going to come home with a bump. Okay. So this way, I'm going to be on the bottom, and you're going to be up on top.
His hand.
I like piggybacks. You like piggybacks? I do. I really. Brian will jump in. Okay. Now the owner, you don't want to lose your job. Maybe your virginity, but not your job.
Wow.
And where you from? No, the contract to be signed. Thank you. Look at his face.
I'm good. I want to ask for the record. What was that?
That's what Ethan is. The beauty of me. That's the real deal, unscripted, uncensored, and that's what people want. Look at the 7-Eleven. She didn't leave till 6:10.
He just calls people fat. I mean, it's incredible that he gets away with this.
She was on the corner. The cops went told her to break it up. She's a big girl. You guys are cool.
You believe that shit? He just goes up to people and calls them fat, and now he calls these girls ugly.
You know Freddy Krueger.
Freddy Krueger.
2 5s make a 10. You know, Maria?
Jesus.
P.S. You know, plastic surgery.
As you can see, there may be a bit of deserved disrespecting. Especially because Ethan was messing with the guy for being cringy and extremely out of pocket.
By the way, the whole relationship we have with him is talking shit on him. We've made like 4 videos on him on the Ethan and Hila channel. They're all shitting on Jimmy Lee. That's the whole premise of our relationship.
It's basically, he does cringy comedy, and that's how we found him. And
so it's not
that is the relationship, you know. It's not like
he's unaware of that.
Right.
That's the whole purpose. He wants to be with us. He wants to interact with us, knowing that we're always just goofing on him.
And just after this clip, Gokunaru brings up something that seemed just a little bit odd.
And they're kind of racist in a way. And oh my god, did you see that? Look at this. My god, Ethan. So we just got a good look at the Google Doc he uses to question this guy. And wouldn't you know it, it outlines every single question he asks.
For me, and I got a big outfit. And
so you're a successful dentist. What is your passion? Is it comedy or dentistry?
Well, I wasn't doing this for money. I'm not making money doing it. It's a passion from here.
So what does your wife think about the...
She thinks I'm nuts. And I got my oldest son that thinks I'm nuts, and my young one thinks I'm hysterical.
What does she think about all the female attention you get?
It even has some of the fucking jokes that he uses.
Jimmy emails me very frequently. He pretty much emails me like 5 times a day. We're best friends. He emails Hila too.
Except I ended up blocking him.
So now we know why he was so pushy during the JonTron interview. When he has an agenda...
Well, okay. I mean, this criticism is just strange that I have notes.
Yeah.
Ethan touches on this, that it's probably not the best to follow a script to a T, but at the same time, he was not confident in his ability to be an entertaining podcast host, so he made sure he had some gags on standby. Doesn't really seem like it's that big of a deal to bring up, or really valid criticism.
I mean, why is that a criticism? I mean, I'm an amateur podcast host, and I try to formulate my thoughts as best I can. I mean, I agree that it's best. I've learned that it's best to be prepared, but to avoid it as much as possible. That's what I've learned over time.
Yeah, you don't script it nearly as closely
And we're
as that.
still
And obviously, it takes
trying
practice.
to.
And like the previous people brought up, he then calls Jimmy Lee, who does his bit.
Well, I'm all right. I had a rough week there, Ethan. I went to my doctor to get my prostate checked, and I said, "Where do I put my pants?" He said, "Next to mine." I left.
Nice.
You want a new joke?
Just give me whatever you like.
Well, I was with an orphan girl last night, made love, and then when I got done, she said she wanted to go to church to find her father.
That's a good
My
joke.
wife's giving me trouble. She's giving me trouble.
Why?
My wife's giving me trouble. I took her to the presidential suite at Motel 6, Hilla, and we're making love. And I said, "Honey, why are you so quiet?" And she said, "I'm in the bathroom, you idiot." And I said, "Stay there. I'm doing better without you." So we're not talking now.
That's a shame. I'm sorry to hear that.
There was, Ethan, a round bed above the, a round mirror above the bed. It said, "Objects may appear larger than they actually are." And I told her she's a lousy cook. I said, "If you could cook better, we could fire the chef." She said, "If you could screw better, we could fire the chauffeur." You see, we're fighting, the wife and I.
And again, this point is just not really convincing knowing the context. William Osman, on the other hand, Ethan does agree that it's not the best look. It was something that they were doing experimentally, and he states that if he knew William felt slighted and wanted a full episode, he would have given it to him.
He says, so by the way, I didn't know that William made this video before he came on. Although it's good, at least, because he acknowledges that he knew what he was coming for. And the reason that he only was coming for 20 minutes, if you look at that episode, it was only an hour long. And I think the reason is that, again, like we did so many times, is we're experimenting and trying things. My idea was like, let me try it where we do this segment with William, and then we do the news, and that's the whole episode. It was only an hour long.
I think there was another segment before William came in too. But
Maybe.
yes, we were trying to do a more segmented, yes, like a talk show where.
And so, actually, I didn't know that he was sad that he wasn't going to get a full episode, and I do feel bad that we didn't give him a full episode, and we definitely should have. I agree with that.
It's clear that William did take it personally, which Ethan of course felt bad for. With that being said though, I don't think anyone is owed this sort of platform. A good example of this is Marco. He makes custom designed sneakers for famous celebrities. He gets exposure from these interactions, but isn't loathing about not getting a Joe Rogan episode after he gave him his pair. I guess what I'm trying to say is just because William made that hat doesn't mean that he deserved a full podcast with Ethan. And with that being said, Ethan did give him a platform, it just wasn't as long as William wanted it to be.
It's, imagine everything stripped away. You don't know what you're doing the next day, you don't know what you're doing the next week, you don't know anything. And
what's the thing that you really were depressed about losing that maybe you didn't expect, but
it wasn't having
Seems
lost
like a
something,
good
it was just not
conversation.
being able to
I
sort
think
of
I can
jump
skip
back
this.
into everything as instantaneously as you do every day.
So for the sake of saving you some time, they basically just talk about how his house burned down for a good 15 minutes of his 20 minutes. And obviously, you know, if this were a full-fledged podcast, then it would make sense for them to go on about this for a while. But he only has 20 minutes. So basically, the majority of his time was spent talking about a devastating situation he endured. And to their credit, Ethan and Gila
What's
seem
the
like they
problem
do
with that?
care. But immediately after this, they transition swiftly.
So, just again to give context, he had a really viral video because he made a video about it on his channel. His house burned down. We're both from Ventura, incidentally, so I was like following that whole story. And he made a video about his house burning down and going through the rubble that went like super viral. So, I mean, to me, it seemed like a really interesting topic of conversation. So.
I also, this is a small point, but I do want to say, just because he keeps saying it, it was longer than 20 minutes.
I'm on their side in regards to the sentiment of the criticisms. It was an interesting conversation to have, and was something that William made popular himself, so I wouldn't consider it an out-of-pocket conversation to focus on. The call that they had together was ultimately just repeating the same feelings as they had previously, but both understand the situation and pledge the internet just likes to weaponize these types of situations.
Honestly, at the end of the day, like, I don't really care. I think people make a bigger stink about it than they should. Yeah, like, I think that, you know, nobody's perfect, and I think that you and Eli are like, you know, some of the nicest people that I've met. And the decision to not have me on longer probably stemmed from maybe not thinking that it would be like as interesting to the podcast audience, which I totally get. Like as a content creator, you have to try to figure out what people want to see. And so I think it was just a kind of unfortunate situation where, it may have been deemed that people didn't want to see as much of William Osmond stuff, because at the time it was a much smaller channel. So it's not like something that has affected me greatly, and like I don't think about it every day. At the time though, it was maybe a little bit of a bummer to have not been included more, but that doesn't really change the way like you guys have been nice to me, even like especially that day or after the fact.
Well, I do definitely apologize. We should have included you in the whole episode for sure.
Yep.
That's it. That's really all there is to it. But actually, you are coming next week.
Yeah.
Ending off this chapter, they move to Bill Burr.
But Bill Burr doesn't know who
Bruh.
Ethan is, and he doesn't care. And Ethan went into it assuming that he would already have respect. He felt
That's outrageous,
That's not true.
dude. If anything, if you watch back to Bill Burr, I'm painfully insecure. If anything, I mean,
Yeah.
I have an incredible reverence for Bill Burr, and so the fact that it was awkward was really just me being nervous and being insecure.
Like many of the other points, he was purely speculating. And as Ethan points out, he is clearly nervous and was trying hard to get Bill Burr to like him, being that he's such a big fan. So to that point, it seems that he couldn't be farther from the truth. Ethan further breaks this down by saying,
All right.
Now, I'm not ragging on him for being nervous. I'm ragging on him because his superiority complex was shattered.
There's no evidence of that. I didn't see any evidence for that.
And it was revealed that it's actually an underlying layer of insecurity that is driving him.
See, that's part of. I feel like that's a new thing. You're already worried about your daughter being sexually assaulted. How old's your daughter?
I don't think that is. I think that's you projecting your OCD on me. It's
you're talking about
that she said 3 words and she totally communicated like
right.
That's so
yeah.
I didn't see evidence
It
for
seems
that
like
at
you're in love
all.
with your daughter.
It's cut up too. I don't even know what we were talking about here.
Yeah, it's so cut up.
Hearing you talk about her on the podcast.
Jesus Christ! Well, you're pretty perceptive. You think you care about your own child.
Listen, more than that.
He was busting my balls, and I was so anxious that I couldn't appreciate the fact that he was really just busting my balls and having
Right.
fun.
Yeah.
And so I was like, in my mind, I was like, oh, this is going awful. And I was trying, but I was like in my head, which is the worst
Yeah.
while you're trying to be in the moment. The worst you could say, which plenty of people did say, is that I'm a bad interviewer and this was an awkward interview. All that's true. But what he's doing and what he's attempted to do throughout all this is to speculate about what my intentions are and what I meant and what I did. But none of it's true. And frankly, I don't really think it's supported by what he's showing either. I guess what he really does is he establishes like my character really early on, which is funny because the first thing with Leafy was flat out wrong. And so with the Leafy thing and the John Trump thing and all this, then you're like, okay, he's a really bad dude. And then you have no problem accepting all the speculative things about my intentions throughout the video.
Most of the following chapters follow the same sort of pattern of speculation without fully understanding the context. This is the problem with pure hit pieces, in my opinion, that your biased view can lead you down holes that are just purely speculative. And it's hard to watch this response and consider all Ethan's talking points as just cope. He admits on multiple occasions his faults and calls out the BS when there's nothing there. That is not to say, though, that there's not accurate criticisms in this video, like the last point that Gokunaru brings up, that Ethan exploits a man with clear issues for clout and gain for views. Trisha Paytas, White Claw Gabe. Sorry, but the list goes on. It's always been Ethan's image to have this whack-pack-esque group of characters on his show for entertainment, just like Howard Stern. And he isn't a stranger to this, so if you wanted to criticize him for that, you absolutely could. The way that Gokunaru does it, however, is just way too speculative instead of calling out what's actually going on. With that being said, the video itself was entertaining, so I can see where people are coming from in regards to agreeing with Gokunaru. And as for the video as a whole, there were some correct criticisms, just with the wrong intentions. If he left out more of the reasons why he felt Ethan did what he did, it would give it more validity. And if we're here to talk about exploitation, it couldn't be more true than the one mentioned previously, Trisha Paytas. He struck gold with her, and ever since he roasted her for manipulating her photos, he cashed in on the attention that she brought. Let's look at some of the numbers to show how much traffic she brought to the channel. Her first couple appearances on the H3 podcast did so much better than the other videos on the channel. So eventually, they came out with their own podcast titled Frenemies, as you all know. It was a legitimate content farm, and somehow it lasted 39 episodes. Within the first 5 minutes of their first episode, he had a feeling that it would crumble.
The same jokes. You're restarting it. Not that I made jokes. I'm just saying, like, it's just awkward now. I'm like, oh, did I say something wrong? Like,
this podcast is a disaster. Listen, Trisha, why are you so stressed? We've done this before.
know.
Just relax.
I think because before I just always knew, like, it was in and out. Like, it's just like, oh, I'm never going to see these people again. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, you have to see me every week?
yeah.
Because one of my questions for you is, how long do you think it's going to last? Because my thing is like, because with you, I know that like your relationships are very hot and cold.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've built this whole set and table. And I wonder, you know, I wonder how many episodes we make before this whole thing is burned to the ground.
No.
The two of them were constantly making fun of each other, exposing personal details on each other's lives, and then just grubbing out. You had one character that was a compulsive liar, and the other that was a gullible drama farmer. It was good content at times, but unbearable to watch at others. The worst parts about the show was the fights being on camera for too long, Trisha's lies and manipulation, and of course, Ethan smacking when he eats.
Your mouth is full of food and you're chewing into the mic.
Disgusting! The first part about the fights happened on a couple occasions, and I'll show a clip, but ultimately they fight, Trisha explodes, leaves, and then Ethan does a whole react video right afterwards. He honestly just can't help but milk the content. And is it interesting? Yes, but it's also morally wrong to do so.
Jax, I can't believe you're going after Jax. He's such a sweet guy. All right, Trisha. It's not. You don't have to choose between me and Moses. He can do both, even if we hate each other. He'll go with you. Yeah. No, he drove here. Bye, Trisha. Are we gonna make TikToks? Are we gonna make TikToks? We were supposed to make TikToks. She's leaving. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, Trisha left. So this is our first fight, our big real fight. She snapped on me and she left. I'm gonna try to do a postmortem on this. I don't know. Maybe she's having a bad day. But I do. You want to comment, Moses? Moses came back. You want to sit down? Go ahead, get her phone. Yeah. She's like, Moses, you pick who you're staying with. But I was like, go ahead. Oh, Moses is here. Give it time. Okay, yeah, no, I figure. All right, bye, Moses. Love you too, buddy. I was genuinely feeling bad but I don't know, because I feel like I always goof with her like that, right, Dan?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Am I wrong to think that she was kind of like, well, maybe I shouldn't continue this conversation without her.
Probably
it's not fair.
Probably not.
I think I said my piece.
Yep.
But we hope to see Trisha soon. We miss her, and I really genuinely am sorry. I'm laughing because Dan's laughing. It's not about dumping. I don't know what happened. You better just. Well, if just so you know what happened. She was talking about like how you're like my mom's. She says like your brother hates you and your mom's not. Like she says this stuff in passing and it really upsets Hila. So she started saying this stuff and I said Hila asked that we don't talk about this stuff anymore. So that's it. That's all that happened. No, I know. Okay, but I'm just telling you so you know the situation you're dealing with. All right. Well, everybody.
Yeah, because you're I'm gaslighting you by saying.
You're not upset. You're perfectly in a perfect condition right now.
Okay. Wow. Holy cow, that's crazy. I mean, I don't know how you. I just don't see what you just said. That's really.
What did I do?
I think we have to end it now. Like really.
What did I do?
We gotta stop for real. Really.
Okay.
Stop. Please. Okay.
Whenever you're ready, you can walk away.
So. No, because I don't want to title this.
It's the pizza curse. I'm not the title, Trisha. It's a pizza curse. It is. We shouldn't have got pizza. The pizza. Oh no, it was pizza. Trisha, let me just say, I'm sorry.
Ethan, that you just did that. You're right. You're right. Nothing's wrong with you. That's. But I go. You know how much therapy I go to a week. I go to 4 Zoom sessions a week.
I understand.
Ethan, you know what you just said was, you're right, Trisha. Everything's fine. That's insane. The fact that you did that to me is like
it's not insane. We're friends. We're having a friendly conversation. I shouldn't have to walk on eggshells around everything I say.
All right, Ethan, I'm asking
you can leave anytime, Trisha.
But then you're making this thing where we're ending the show and you get to sit here and be like, okay, well that just happened and you're eating pizza and then
I will end the show the minute you walk.
All right, so let's just end it, please. Thank you guys for watching. I don't want it to be a thing where you're just sitting here eating pizza and become a meme.
So then I'll say I'm sorry.
Okay.
Obviously, I don't want to get an argument.
Really
Okay, all right, we're done. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
In his defense, he did do a better job of not doing that whole commentary bit afterwards, but you could tell she was elevated the whole podcast and he probably could have ended it quicker. Ethan just should not have platformed her on many of these occasions, and not just because of what she was saying, but it was clear that she was struggling mentally. It just felt like we were waiting for a time bomb to go off. So if anybody wants to criticize Ethan for exploiting Trisha's unwellness, you're totally fair to do so. The second main flaw with Frenemies was Trisha's unchecked lying and fabrications. It's iffy to bring up some of these contradictions and embellishments because it has to do with SA and your boy ain't trying to get that victim blaming card pulled in him. So I'm just going to go ahead and say look it up or don't. She just says a lot of stuff that's very matter of fact that could contradict a previous point or a future statement she makes. She claims to have schizophrenia and she also claims to be trans.
Can I ask you about schizophrenia?
Yeah.
What are
I want to ask
to what degree do you have like auditory hallucinations?
Both. I have auditory and visual. Yeah.
Do you have smell?
No.
Then fast forward to a recent podcast episode of My Chemical Imbalance. Trisha contradicts herself and says this.
And so I've been sober since December 18th, and then he was like, that your drug use could have been suppressing voices, which was weird because it could also bring on voices from what I've read and stuff like that. So he's like, it could. So when you got sober is when like kind of these auditory and visual hallucinations, and sometimes even like my smelling and touch hallucinations, like they're very real.
So yeah, on the Trash Tuesday podcast, Trish was specifically asked if they had smell hallucinations, and Trish said no. But fast forward a month later, all of a sudden they magically have them. In a recent podcast episode that was uploaded on August 17th, Trisha was talking about their transgender video and their DID scandal. Check it out.
The first DID video and the transgender video, I was being really vulnerable, and to me, those were two things that are. Why would someone want to fake it? That's the worst kind of attention you could have on you, because not only is that a stigma that whoever you date, I was single at the time, whoever you date, some people don't want to date transgender, female to male.
She just can't stop lying, so it's impossible to know which details are real and which ones are fake. It's damaging for her because her breakdowns and her spirals were put on blast for millions to see, but I'm sure that there were things said on Frenemies that hurt innocent people as well. Looking back at Frenemies as a whole, it had its highlights for sure, but there's too much of a focus around Trisha's mental struggles and curating beef for views. But again, he's just joking around. The problem lies when you call out others for doing the exact same thing and equally damaging stuff just on the other side of the political spectrum. A couple more recent examples that show off his just joking type attitude include...
Do we have any insight into what they're actually talking about there at the NRA meeting that's today in Texas? Someone should building. Okay.
I've been boxing for 10 years ever since my mom passed away, and it's been such a...
He's fighting with the spirit of his dead mom, too.
I don't have any of that.
Yeah, your mom's alive, right?
Yeah.
Nah, see? I'm just saying, bro. You don't got what he's got. His mom died, though.
And, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
What? Why? Why?
What is going on with you?
I'm sorry. Don't mind me.
If you are able to look at women who are not selling themselves or benefiting off of being seen sexually.
You're a monster, dude.
You guys are crazy.
Why did you do that?
Zach, what the fuck, bro?
Is Ethan Klein being a delightful human being?
I was just going to say, if there's another Holocaust, if they start rounding up the Jews again, I hope Ben gets gassed first.
He's had to walk back all these jokes/statements and apologize to the public, even his audience. His audience holds him to a pretty high standard, and they're typically the ones to cancel him. He just doesn't really know where the line is, but will be the first to go at someone at the opposing viewpoint or political belief with absolutely no charitability. His worst enemy, as stated previously, is the live content and is why he's constantly getting canceled. He can't keep his foot out of his mouth, and that's why we love him. So this is the part of the video where I go ahead and take that biased opinion on Ethan and say, I'm a fan. The reasons for liking Ethan include his hilarious laugh,
They just dumped him. What the f is that? It looks like he intentionally dropped it.
There's too much fuel on the wood. The firefighter strikes a match. He's engulfed. He tries to shake
It's
the
just the way he
flames
casually sprinkles it on it. Like, why would you do that?
his out-of-pocket jokes that aren't political.
I've taken some time to check out your podcast, and, you know, your jokes are funny, dude.
The amazing characters he introduced us to.
Steve, where are you right now?
I'm at Menchie's having some yogurt.
and the great bits such as Mobility Scooter and promoting the FUPA.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Sir.
There's truly a lot to enjoy with Ethan and the H30 crew. It's just sometimes they move to areas that aren't necessarily the most tasteful to the general audience, which is why I can understand why many don't like him. But I do plan to continue watching in the future. And if we're lucky, then hopefully the Leftovers podcast is done for good. Hassan is just too left for even the lefties, and Ethan is now feeling the wrath of that. Which could be a video in itself, but I'm just going to go ahead and leave it there and say, you know, yeah, Ethan is a hypocrite, he exploits others for views, but it works for him, and I'm happy for him. Hope all you guys have a great day. My name is Slink. If you want to go ahead and leave your opinions down in the comment, go ahead. Leave a like, subscribe. Take care.